Okay, so ASM, the blocking evasion techniques list evasion techniques that ASM detects and deals with them by performing normalization process on URI and parameter input. Normalization is a series of changes done on a buffer. ASM implements the same series of changes that the predicted web server uses, resulting in a buffer that is similar to what the web server will see. By running signature machines matching on the buffer, ASM is able to catch attacks that otherwise could be evaded. Normalization works in conjunction with attack signatures and is used when a given web application allows different types of encoding. For instance, JavaScript may send double encoded request. Note, normalization is only performed on HTTP traffic. This does not apply to XML or SAML. For certain attacks like SQL injection and XSS, further normalizations are needed which help to handle evasions that exist at the level of the language or protocol being used, that is SQL or HTML. These normalizations are done on parameter values only and do not generate violations. Rather, they are only done internally in order to help boost the effectiveness of certain signatures. HTTP protocol compliance ensures HTTP requests are properly formatted by performing validation checks. So this is a major part where you will see a lot of traffic getting dropped because of it is not meeting the HTTP protocol compliance. Because HTTP protocol compliance is something in which there are multiple checks that are done, like header check, payload check, and a lot of other options like the file format and the upload size and all those things. We will see that. And by default I think most of them are in block state unless you modify for one of those to make it like just alarm and not block. This setting lists the type of format verification that ASM can potentially perform on HTTP request. ASM will test for only those issues that are enabled. Also, when the ASM examines request for a particular format and that format is invalid, you have the option to block the request, right? So let's see what are the HTTP compliance options in ASM, and then you'll get a better idea. Okay, it will take few seconds to start. Okay, it's response page that David discussed, I think. Yeah, we were to discuss this mainly, security policy components. So policy components, several components can be configured or learned in a security policy. These components are basically the elements, the major categories in which you can do the configuration for making up the complete policy. So you need to know the components and how they can be configured and what are the valid options in those components and what are the options which you can exclude from being checked, which are safe, and those things. So the components that will be discussed in this section are file types, URLs, parameters, flows, methods, headers, attack signatures, XML profile, data guard, and anomaly detection. So these are all the things that you get on the under the ASM section. So what was the message that you want to display that day? You said you want to get something like contact IT administrator, something like that, right? In the ASM error message. So that is simply you can it will take some time to get it ready. Okay, so now you see this. So we were talking about the response page. I'll quickly do that and then we'll move on. So just if you go to this one and go to policy response pages. Now if you want to say something like by default the page that we have, if I just show it in the GUI, it comes like this, right? The URL was rejected, please consult with your administrator. Now if you want to add the text only, you can add somewhere like please consult your administrator, and you want to edit this. So just copy this over here, and you want to create this new response page, right? Right, so I included this, please email to support@xyz.com, or you want to include any other text, you can do that. So, okay, now I just paste the phone response to revert it back to what it was. Any questions around that you have now? All right, so file types, the first file types is the first component. Now, before I go that, as we were discussing, that we have in the block settings HTTP compliance option, right? So if we check the HTTP compliance option, what all options under that category are there? So I go to policy building, learning, and block settings. Once I go there, and we have to select over here advanced. Click on this HTTP protocol compliance field, and there we see so many options: enable, learn, 2 categories, and all these HTTP related options under these categories. Now when like for example, header name with no header value, this only has a check mark in learn and it's not enabled. So that means if for a particular policy which is in blocking mode, the ASM receives a request which violates this thing, header name with no header value. So that means the request has the header name which does not have any value. It's a blank basically header name field. Okay, so it will not block that request. It will just learn means it will just trigger an alert and it will allow the request as it is. But if you want that, okay, if this is breach, then it should block the request, then in that case you will have to select this option. Okay, so once you enable it, once you enable it or select in this option, then actually your blocking settings will be triggered. So that's why it's saying over here, if you see, 4 out of 19 sub violations are enabled, right? So it is 4 out of this total is 19. Okay, now let me do one thing. Let me first put the policy in blocking mode, then this policy underscore automatic, let's put this in blocking mode. Okay, save. Close. Okay, now apply policy. So what I've done is, it's now in blocking mode. So now we will get a better idea what all things actually are blocked in this policy, what all subcategories. So still you see those 4 out of 19, whatever is enabled is blocked. I can add on or I can remove as per my application requirement. If I see in the alerts that a lot of traffic is blocked which and the alert says several content length headers, this is the violation because of which it is blocked. But the application team says that the application is such that they want this to be allowed because this is the application behavior, several content length headers. So in that case I will not block this because this is my requirement. If I block this, it will create unnecessary false positives, right? So this is how we basically choose or unchoose. See, leave it by default, that is the best practice. Then don't block anything intentionally, whatever is blocked, block. Now if your log says some of these violations and the application team, check with the application team that boss, this violation is genuine or it is it should not be allowed. If they say it is not to be allowed, you don't have to worry, khali bali. But if they say that okay, no, this is genuine and this need to be allowed, then come here, uncheck that part. Simple, like bad HTTP version, uncheck it, so that it is allowed. This is one of the thing, HTTP protocol compliance, that you very commonly will have to modify when you are doing the fine tuning of the application. Okay. Now file types. Okay, so these are the components which we can configure for a particular policy based on the application requirement. So file types list the file extensions for all general file types that make up a web application. Example of file types are .php, .asp, .gif and .txt. The file types flags specify the legitimate behavior and properties of each file type. The security template of the application policy affects which file type flags are relevant for that particular category. Now let's go and check the file type. So I think let me see one thing. Let me just see. I have a virtual server. If this virtual server has the policy bind, otherwise I will bind and we'll see. And before that, let me turn on the server so that we can do some real-time hits. Okay, I'll bind the policy to this one if it's already not bound. Okay, I see the policy. This one is already bound, but I should change it to the automatic one. This one is mine, and this one is already in blocking mode. So let's see, and I will say log all request. Okay, and when I will try to hit this virtual IP 24.24.100.100. Is it HTTPS? That's French. Oh, it's not pingable. Okay, that's why it's not pingable. That is there. Properties. Oh, that's why it's not pingable. 24.24.100.1. Cool. Not reachable. Okay. That's weird. So I'm able to ping it, but not sure why it's not opening in browser. Okay, it's not opening in browser, so what could be the issue? The issue could be that the F5 is getting the traffic but not able to forward it to the backend server. And if that's the case, I should see the inbound hits. I've also seen the outbound hits, okay, and the connections. Alright. So let's check if my SNAT automap is in place, and if that's in place, then what could be the issue? Yeah, that's not in place. My bad. Okay. Alright. It should come up. Yep. So it went to for server 1. Now let's see if our ASM noticed some activity. Though it was not a violation, that's why the page came up, otherwise it would have been blocked because the policy is in block mode. And now let's look at the ASM event logs, application request. You want to see all requests so that even if it's legitimate, it should come up. It did not come up. Okay. Let's try and access in a different browser, see if that comes up. Okay, did not record. Let me see my virtual server. It has the logging profile, right? For all the traffic. So ideally it should be recording. See that missed over here. I have to make it log all requests, and then it should show up. update. Let me try and clear the cache and hit again because I don't want the cache to mess up. Let's try the VIP once again, 24.24.100.100. Oh, it went to server 1, so I'm skeptical it might have took from the cache. I'll try replicate it in the IE by removing the cache over there to internet options, delete all the things. Yeah. Try and save in a different tab over here, or rather I close Internet Explorer and reopen a new one. I would have tried in Chrome incognito mode, but I trust this one more. Okay, it went to second server. Not sure if it again took from the cache. So okay, now let me see how is it looking like on the F5. So let's go directly to security and then check out the logs. Yep, see, I got the logs now. So, and you can see that the logs are showing my source IP as well, and this country. Now, the country actually is not correct in this case because the logs, I mean, basically the ASM has the countries categorized based on the IP address. Now, I'm using a public IP which is based out of Virginia, US, so that's why it's showing that flag, pulling up from its database and the time, and it says it is allowed, right? And the URL that I'm accessing is basically I'm just putting the IP. I'm not doing slash something something something, so that's why it's not showing me that URI. And the response code is 200. That means okay, allowed. In one case it took this URI, maybe I typed something wrong, and then it go to 404, I mean response code 404. 404 basically means that it was an authorization error and I was not authorized to view that page. Now if you want to see some log in detail, like for example I selected this and then it got me details. If I select the other one, it will show me detail of the other one as well. So let's focus on this first one. So the first one which we were looking at, let me just highlight that one again. So what this says, requested URL, okay, like suppose you hit slash images, so it will show you slash images or something, I mean same thing after slash. Now the policy that it hit was this policy, and support ID that would have been triggered to that person, you know, who was not able to access was this. So now if that person gives me support ID of this support ID, actually I can find out that okay, in my logs, okay, this was created when he was accessing this URL, and why it was blocked is something like, you know, it will give me the details. Like for example, this HTTP request, I can see what he requested in the request, what was the GET request, and what was the response from the server. Now in this case I can easily see that it is this is blocked because the response is 404. Now 404 response means like basically it is something that is something basically we have to allow, because if I look in my policy, I'm not sure if 404 response is allowed. If I go to my policy and policy properties page for this policy, and okay, no, not this one, I have to check for the policy automatic, right? See the response codes allowed. Okay, we have to select advanced here, and then we can check what response codes are allowed. So by default 404 is allowed, so that's why that would have been allowed. And anything like if the server sends 403, and then since that is not in the allowed response code, so obviously that response with 403 will be dropped by the ASM. So that's how actually we can see the logs and find out what's going on. So let's go back and see some more details about that log entry. So actually it's not a log that's showing blockage, it's just showing okay, its severity is informational, so it's not a very severe any kind of attack, or warning level is not there. And source IP address, it captures the source IP and the source port, and it also captures the destination IP and destination port. That's basically your WIP IP. Now it shows the geolocation based on the IP address, because it understands if you check on Google 24.24.100 series is from United States, so that's why it's detecting that this based on a database of IP to country mapping. Now I have an option to disallow this location. So if I select this, what will happen is that any request coming from US for this particular application and hitting this policy will be dropped by default without even further looking into that request. Okay. Now another thing could be that if let's say you want to add this IP address, source IP address in the exception list, so you can do that also. For that, what you have to do is that you have to just select this. So that means if any request coming from this IP, it is never going to block it, or the ASM is just going to bypass it, even if it violates something or ASM considers it as an attack. Okay, so that's pretty much about it. So support ID is generated by for every log entry, but it would not go to the user unless it's a violation and it gets blocked. Then the user will get to see the support ID, because in our case we never saw the support ID over here because we were not violating anything. Okay, so we were talking about file types. Now let's check out the file types. So in this section, application security, we have over here file types, and in file types further we have three categories: allowed file types, disallowed file types, and wildcards order. So by default there's a wildcard entry which says all the file types with any URL length and any request length and any query length and any post data length are to be allowed. However, when we are constructing a policy to make it better secure, we should not keep it like this, because this allows kind of any when it comes to file type. Now, so in order to avoid this and add some particular file types which should be known to us, like for example, if it's a banking application or a website, then the application developer has to tell me like what all kind of file types they are want to allow to upload basically. So if they say that they only want to allow PDF and docx and they don't want to allow JPG, and also I'll just allow those two, right? So based on our requirement, now what I'll do, for example, if I just delete this any, okay, so now by default no file type will be allowed. Now I have to add those file types which I intend to allow basically. So, and I applied that change to my policy. Now let me try and access this site again, and let's see what happens. Though I'm not uploading any files, so I should not ideally face any issue. You would only face issue when you are uploading any file with a particular file type extension. Oh, see, this requested URL was rejected. Please consult your administrator. So now I know my ASM has blocked me. So now let's go back and see. That's interesting when we find in the logs, okay, what was the reason that it blocked it. So event logs, and now even in illegal I should get it. Yeah, see, so it's showing the red circle with a dash. That means it's blocked, and this is the time, and this is the source IP. That's mine, and the URL is the default one. Let's see why it blocked it basically. Okay, see, it says illegal file type, illegal URL length, illegal request length. Okay, that's understandable. So basically, even if I am accessing the home page that is based on this, for example, this website, the home page is based on the HTML. So the request that is going to request for some home page, and that will have some, the request will have some URL length and some, you know, illegal, request length. Now since I haven't added any file type, so there will be no URL length and no request length associated. So what it is doing, that is why it is blocking it. For example, if you want to see this, so the file type that my application is using is no_ext. Okay, now what I will do, once this request is blocked, I know that this is the file type that I have to allow. If application team would have given me, that is best. But if they don't have given me, then this is how I can find out. So now I'll go to my policy, file types for this policy, and I'll create a new one, no_ext. That is the file type, right? We found, and the length, URI length, request length, this all is given here, the default bytes, right? So I will just leave it as default. If I find that there is some positive, false positive happening because of this file size, then I will go back and modify this also on this screen. But let's say right now, let's go with the default and see after applying these changes, does it allow me to proceed further accessing the site. Okay, let me try and access it again. Alright, cool. Now it went through. And again, a log entry would have been formed. And if I check, now it would be formed in the legal request section basically. So it should be formed for the current time. Yeah, okay, now this is the old ones. If I see all request, then it should be, yeah, 1040, right? So 1040, yeah, this one now. Now it says it's allowed. And if I go back again, the one where it was having a problem, so we saw that illegal file type. Now let's see the URL length, what I was hitting. Okay, it was only 1. So I am allowed now the default of 100. So that's already covered, and this is also 468 detected request length. This is this is also covered. Now we can see what HTTP request I sent, get HTTP 1.1, and there was no URL in my request, so there's no URL mentioned. And the response from the server was no response logging is disabled. Okay, I'll have to enable response logging in the policy. Okay, fine. So I'll go here in the virtual server and I enable the response logging. And I'll choose this, and I think this will enable the response logging also. Okay, so now you must have got an idea like how we add particular file types that is to be allowed, and based on the learning suggestion or based on the application details if you have, and then you can configure for each particular file type the size and the request length and the URL length that you want to allow, and under that section also you can customize these values. So this is what it looks like for this particular file extension as of now. Okay, and then the other section says disallowed file type. Now let's try and put this no under xt in the disallowed file type. Okay, let's see how it goes. Create. Okay, first I'll have to remove it from that one. So what I'm going to do this now, testing, I'm just going to remove this and I'm going to add it in the disallowed file type. Okay, now I'll apply and then we'll test it out. Now ideally the request should be blocked once this is applied. So let me clear the cache and then test it out. Yep, see, that's expected. Now what we're going to do is, now we're gonna, in the allowed file type, we'll allow the wildcard and then we'll test it out if it allows or still it blocks it. Okay, so that's my wildcard. Create. Okay, so it's wildcard. Now what do you guys think? It would allow or it will still block? Any guesses? Okay, let's see. Again, I'll clear the cookies and cache for ID. Wow, it's still blocking. What's the deal? Let's go and check the support ID. What support ID I was getting now? 348, right? So let's check in the logs. What's it saying? Even logs for this policy. And I want to check the 348 one, right? I think this one must be the one, the latest one. Yep, no, this is 350. So I want to check the one which has 348. Maybe this one. Yep, this one. This one was the latest one which was blocked, right? Yeah. So let's see what it has to say. Again, it says illegal file type. So that means, yeah, detection causes disallowed file type. So what it means, even if you have configured wildcard in the allowed list and there is a disallowed list as well, then it will execute the wildcard entry, but it will give that particular disallowed file type more priority. Okay, so it will allow wild type all the file types except the one in the disallowed list. Once I remove it from there, it's gonna work. Yeah, so it's just like, you know, in firewalls, the deny comes, takes priority, and then you have to allow things above that. So similarly over here, the disallowed list has a higher priority. So if you place anything in the disallowed list, that is going to be blocked first, even though you do a wildcard allow in the allow list. So now once I will remove it from here, file types, disallowed list, delete, apply the policy. Okay, now let's clear the cache, check it out. Okay, so let me just again try and access this. 24.24.100.100. That is strange. It did not apply the policy over. Let me see. The port ID that I got was 352, right? 352. Let's see, this one is the one. 354. Okay. It again says that illegal file type detection cost. Okay, now it does not say that it stands in the disallowed file type, but it says illegal file type. So that means it is not allowed. Now let's check in the policy why it's not allowed, though we have a wildcard allowed. So ideally that should work. Let me try and enforce this. Still it's block 356, right? So that means even it was already enforced. It's not a problem to enforce it, but let's click over here and see what else we can make changes. Oh, okay, see, the problem is that just giving the wildcard character is not enough. What we missed is, and I did this in mistake deliberately so that you remember, because this is a very common thing that we missed. You should choose over here wildcard. Then only it's actually a wildcard. Otherwise, if you put explicit, then we should give the exact file name, no_ext. The choice is yours. If you want to have a good strict policy, then make it explicit and put the exact file name. Otherwise, make it wildcard and then give the asterisk. Alright, so now it should not be an issue. See, not working. So we discussed the file types. I think now it should be clear. Let's cover up some theory real quick. For each file type definition, you can configure the kind of file, explicit, wildcard, or no extension that we saw, length restrictions, URL request, query string, and post data, and enabling response checking. Explicit file types are file types that are not wildcard expressions. A wildcard file type specifies that the file type is a wildcard expression. No underscore ext entails a URL with no file type. So in my case, I was not accessing a particular file type, so I need to put no underscore ext. When configuring a wildcard file type, you have the option to enable tightening for that file type. When tightening is enabled on the file type and ASM receives a request that contains that file type that matches the wildcard file type, ASM generates a learning suggestion for the found file type. You can then review the new file types and decide which are legitimate or which are not. If you are manually configuring URLs and flows, associated file types must already be defined. You can also define wildcards or regular expressions that specify a group of URLs of a certain file type. So I think we have done a lot of research around in the lab on the file types, and I think that doubt should be clear now. If you read and you have any issues, just let me know. Okay, so this part we have already seen how to navigate to the file type option. Now the next thing is the URL. So guys, I think I will stop here today and we'll discuss the URL.